Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Believe in Kentucky. Hope everybody is warm as possible and safe as possible with the weather that you got or didn't get. It might not have been as much as everybody thought, but it's still freezing cold. So, uh, how are things in Lex for you, Cole? Because the big 14 inches didn't happen, but it's still wintertime.
Yeah, a lot of snow out there. Hearing people try to get it in and out of here is interesting. Um, they don't really clear my road a ton outside because it's a bit off the beaten path a little bit. So not really. Like it's I'm not far from downtown and I'm not far from the area. It's just kind of a road that isn't as mainly traveled, so they don't really salt it very well. Um, but all the same, it's not too bad for me. I got to, stores were pretty picked clean last week, but I got to go and get most of what I needed. Had to go to a couple places to find some chicken, but got food to cook, so I've been cooking the last few days. Apart from, since I covered the game against Ole Miss, I haven't had a reason to leave my apartment, so I've kind of just been hanging out here. Gone outside and checked it out a few times, took the trash out just to have an excuse to walk through the snow, but for the most part, I've just been hanging out here and it'll be that way until maybe tomorrow. We'll see if we're able to make it down to Nashville for the Vanderbilt game. That is still the plan. But last 2 days for me have just been hanging out, watching some Patriots football, watching some college basketball, and reading my books.
Yeah, hey, there's worse ways to pass the time. So good deal, man. Good deal. Congrats on your Patriots. We'll definitely
Thank you.
get to that. I guess we can start with Ole Miss because, as you mentioned, Kentucky goes to Vanderbilt. Can they keep it going? 5 game win streak. Ole Miss came to town. Travis Perry made his return. Um, did not score any points. Kentucky was able to get the win. 72-63. So 5 straight wins after starting off 0-2. And then this coming week, you're at Nashville and then at Fayetteville. So the schedule gets a little bit tougher. Can this momentum travel? Is the question.
That is the question, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, Kentucky's going into this game tomorrow, riding a 5 game SEC winning streak. That is a little tidbit for you, the longest of the Mark Pope era, period. And I mean, certainly we're looking at a conference that has taken a step down from last year. It got 14 teams into the field right now. I think the projection's like 9. They could get to double digits. They could even drop down to 8 if some of these teams keep playing themselves off the bubble. But um, certainly a worse SEC than it was last year, but it does feel significant. There was a lot of pressure on Kentucky, and if we're being honest, a lot of pressure on Mark Pope to kind of fix things after that 0-2 start. And obviously, you don't like the way they lost at Alabama. Um, Not very competitive, but losing to Alabama to start SEC play isn't that egregious. It's really, and it's no disrespect to Dennis Gates, but it's really the loss to Missouri that feels more painful, feels more impactful, and if you ask me, is the biggest factor in them not being ranked right now. Obviously, Kentucky, if you saw the new AP poll, they were 27th behind Tennessee, who was 26th, the first team to miss the bracket. If you ask me, the biggest thing that I think is keeping Kentucky out, it is that Missouri loss. That is, again, no disrespect to Dennis Gates. They have a squad. They might even make the tournament, but like as it stands, that does not look like a good loss, especially the way you lost it, blowing it at home. Um, I'd actually like to go back a little bit further to Texas because the Texas game is what felt one of the more significant games to me of the week in terms of, like Missouri, we saw Kentucky go into the end of that game with a lead. We saw them kind of start to let that lead chip away. It's easy to forget because they won, but Kentucky did not score a field goal for the last 5 minutes and 48 seconds against Texas, but did enough to make sure, they took advantage of Texas fouling. They took advantage of those mistakes to put them on the line. And they then were able to get the victory. It was a complete reversal from what happened against Missouri, in which they just fell apart. This time, it wasn't going as cleanly as you wanted it to, but they still held on to get the victory. I talked to Pope after the game, and he was like, "You can't question this team's ability to perform late, especially after the Tennessee and LSU games that this team has bought in." Um, and it's all of those things that have kind of contributed to my column that I put out, or will be going out today. It's going out in the print edition of the Cat's Paws. Is that I don't think it's too late for this Kentucky team to be successful. I think that in terms of preseason expectations, I think you and I would probably agree this team is probably not winning banner number 9. So in that sense, it could be seen that way, but I think expectations change. And based on what I've seen about this upcoming week at Vanderbilt, at Arkansas, two of the better teams in the SEC conference, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that most people are like, just at least go 1-1. You don't have to sweep that. You don't have to necessarily win both. You would love to win in Fayetteville more than anything. I think most Kentucky fans would be okay with a close loss at Vanderbilt and a statement win at Arkansas. I think most fans would be pretty happy with that. They want to beat John Calipari. But where Kentucky is right now, the narrative around this team has shifted so much since that 0-2 start in SEC play. Even if, when you look at these 5 wins, most of them don't immediately jump off the page as like, that's a phenomenal win. I mean, even the Tennessee game they're currently number 26, not ranked in the AP poll. They've had some flaws this year, even though they did just beat a G League team in Alabama. Love that tweet by them. Don't like crediting the Vols for anything, but that was an awesome tweet. Even Duke had to reply to that one and laugh. But nonetheless, I just think that, can this continue? Maybe. Do I expect them to go 2-0 this week? Probably not. You're playing at Vanderbilt. You're playing at Arkansas. Those are both really, really good teams. And you're doing it, admittedly, with a shortened roster. We saw that against Texas. Cam Williams now. They won't go out and definitively say season ending, but for lack of a better term, it's probably season ending. I mean, Mark Pope was asked after the Ole Miss game if that's season ending injury, and he joked. He said, well, I don't think he'll play Tuesday. So, they won't say the words because it's possible, but for all intents and purposes and for our purposes, Vinny, Cam Williams is probably done for the season with a broken foot that he had surgery on. He was not on the bench for Ole Miss. Neither was Jalen Lowe, who's on his way to get surgery. JQ, we don't know what's going on with JQ right now for the most part. I mean, you hear things here and there, but he's still out is what we're getting. And nonetheless, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Do I think they can win at least one? Absolutely. Do I think they can win 2? If they're lucky. Do I think they could lose both? It's entirely possible. I'm back into I don't know what to expect from this team territory, but I think it is possible to at least win 1. And if you win 1, I think that's a successful week for Kentucky basketball.
And it's been the tightrope. I mean, imagine if Tennessee and LSU go the other way, which thankfully they didn't. You mentioned Missouri being a bad loss. Well, imagine if they beat Georgia. I mean, because they already beat Florida. There's something. I even push back a little bit because you push back on things I say. I'm pushing back a little bit as far as you said. It's mainly the Missouri loss is what's got everybody, which is that's probably the reason they're not ranked, and that is causing a lot of the people being upset. But the Alabama loss caused me to be upset too. Look, in the history of this series, they'd never beat Kentucky 4 times in a row until 3 last year, and then the conference opener this year. Only 4 teams have done that in Kentucky's history. So that to have already lost the first 3 in the fashion they happened, that last one in the tournament, how ugly it got. Have we closed the gap? And Kentucky had a full roster at that point, Cole, too. We can't even, JQ played, Jalen Lowe played. It was, we weren't as decimated by injuries in Tuscaloosa. The chemistry, the playing together, being on the same page, you can question that, but everybody has that at different points in times. You had your full squad, down 20 plus, lose by 15, like you mentioned, not competitive. So I say all that to say I do agree with you. It's hard to know what's going to happen tomorrow night. There have been a lot better teams than this year's Kentucky team go down to Nashville and get that work. It's just that whatever Memorial Magic they call it. We've seen Jamal Mashburn and Rick Pitino's squad struggle. I mean, the 2012 team I think struggled in Nashville. So, if they struggle down there, will that be a shock? No. If we lost down there before, yes. I'm with you too. The way we lost Alabama, the Missouri loss, Then if you go 0-2 versus Cal, that's the guy that's down the road now is 2-0 against you, and is the Tennessee wins on Knoxville are great. Being on the border, growing up on the border of Tennessee, I I want those wins more than anything, just as much as I want Louisville. But to have Cal coming in and just owning you right after he leaves, and everybody was ready for him to go. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
About the Alabama thing, I will just say the four times in a row that is tough. I will say it's
Yeah.
slightly skewed by having to face them 3 times last season. I also think whether it's acceptable or not, I might be a little bit different than a lot of Kentucky fans in the sense like after the game, I felt mostly fine, whereas a lot of Kentucky fans didn't. But the SEC tournament game, if you saw that as anything other than Kentucky just waving the white flag, I don't know. It looked like Lamont Butler was hurting. It looked like they had some issues. Travis Perry started that game for Kentucky. I was looking that up. He started one game in Rupp Arena ever. So this game on Saturday was not his first start in Rupp Arena, but not counting high school. But
Yeah.
he started one game in Rupp Arena, but he started that game. I mean, Kentucky tried early, and then it was clear it was not going their way. It was clear that they were hurt. And I saw it as Kentucky just saying, oh, well, let's try in the NCAA tournament. We're not winning this one and waving the white flag. I get that. That's frustrating. But at the end of the day, I wasn't overly bothered by that. I was, by the time you're at that stage in the tournament, you're covering all the games, you're working, you're just like, they're not going to win it. So let's get out of Nashville and let's get ready for the NCAAs. But I would also agree with your sentiment. I touched on it a little bit, but I might have waved it away more than I should have. How they lost in Alabama was unacceptable this year. I mean, you had your full roster. It doesn't really matter that JQ played poorly. I
Yeah.
mean, all of the bigs did. Nate Oates pretty clearly called that out after the game. It doesn't really matter that, Mo Diabate struggled in his homecoming game. He expressed after he was a bit upset with maybe how some of the players handled the scout, which was interesting to me. But losing that way is not acceptable, even if a loss was the expected outcome for most. Even if you expect to lose, you still expect to lose with a little bit of dignity, and I don't know that they did that a ton in Tuscaloosa. Um, so that is rough. I will say though that a lot of the issues that presented themselves in Tuscaloosa seem to have been a bit rectified in the sense that I asked Mo Diabate after I think it was the Ole Miss game, might have been the Texas game. I forget which game they gave him to us, but I talked to him after one of the games and I asked him, you were pretty upset after Alabama about how the scout was handled. What can you say about how the team has approached preparation going forward? How you think the players are bought in? Like, can you tell me about that? He said, he told me, he's like, I think it's been a lot better. I think that we as a team accepted that we don't have any room to mess around. We don't have any room to not pay our full attention. He said, especially as we get down this stretch, it's evident that we have to pay attention to these little things. And I think, he said, I think everyone on this team understands that now. And again, we'll be asking for a while who he's talking about there, but regardless, his point was that from his perspective, when it comes to the scout, when it comes to preparation, the entire team now is a much more bought in than they were going into Tuscaloosa. I don't know if that was just it being the first game after a break. I don't know if it was just, they beat Indiana and St. John's and thought they were fine again. I
Mm.
don't know what the matter was. But the point is, the loss to Missouri, the loss to Alabama seemed to be a wake up call that they needed. They go to, they bounce back against Mississippi State. They get that dominant win against, we'll keep it honest, not a very good Mississippi State team. Will not be going to the NCAA tournament most likely this year.
Yeah.
And then
Chris
they respond.
Jans.
Yeah,
Chris Jans. Ugh.
not the hottest seat in the SEC. That
Yeah.
might be their next game, LSU. They bounce back there. They get the win in Tennessee. That is still a big win. And then they follow that up with maybe not as good as you'd want them to be, but solid wins over Ole Miss and Texas. Weirdly enough, it seems like in all those cases, they kind of have played a little bit to the level of their competition. I feel like they played worse against Ole Miss than they did against Tennessee. They played worse against Texas than they did at LSU once they started making their comeback, I would say. Obviously, they played dreadful in the first half against LSU, but
Yeah.
not the point I'm making. I would also just say, too, that this upcoming stretch is very pivotal not just for the Calipari sense. I mean, Calipari has Arkansas rolling. They are very, very good. They've also been pretty fortunate this season with injuries that they don't really have a ton of those, knock on wood. Kentucky has an excuse to lose, right? And I know people don't want to hear that. They have an excuse to lose, but they still shouldn't. They still shouldn't because you have to have the matter of pride against Calipari. If nothing else, I understood a little bit that last year's team didn't respond to Calipari maybe the way the fans wanted them to, because when you look at last year's team, why would they care a ton about Calipari? I mean, they didn't play for him. They didn't have any animosity towards him. They weren't Kentucky players. They were recruited to Kentucky out of their previous schools. This year's team, though, you have those guys who were on last year's team. You have those guys who are coming back who got beat by Calipari and want their get back. The same way they got their get back this year against Ole Miss, same way they got their get back against Texas. There is a matter of revenge now that even if the fans felt it, maybe the players didn't feel as much last year. This year, there is that matter of revenge. They want to win at Vandy. I just think that you have to be very cautious with how you approach this week, because winning one, or even, God forbid, winning both, if you win both, people are going to overreact a lot. I'm just going to say it. They're going to overreact a lot. But if you win one, that's great. Preferably the Arkansas one, I'm sure, as most fans would say. But whatever. If you lose both, however, then the conversation starts to become one that Tennessee fans won't like. But the conversation then starts to become, can Kentucky just not beat actual good teams? Because when you look at Kentucky's best wins, you could say St. John's, are number 25 now. That's a very flawed basketball team with no point
Mm-hmm.
guard. When you look at Indiana, that's a team that might miss the NCAA tournament. When you look at Tennessee, probably actually the best team they've beaten, still a very flawed basketball team that a lot of people aren't necessarily sold on.
No.
So when you look at those wins, there is the sense that even their best wins are questionable. So if you lose both of these at Vanderbilt, at Arkansas, even if on their own those wins make sense, if you just like separated those and were like, you lost that game, you'd probably be like, okay, well, I can see how that would happen. You lose them both in 1 week after the stretch they've been playing through, you're going to be facing some uncomfortable conversations all over again. This entire, makeover that you've had and the way people are treating this team probably starts trending downwards again, which some of that's a testament to how volatile it can be inside BBN. Some of that's a testament to, you know, whether or not we want to say it, a lot of the wounds from earlier this season aren't fully healed yet. And there's a lot of people who are very, I might use this word wrong, but trepidatious when they look at Kentucky. They're the same way you say you get back with your ex and you're just a lot less trusting of them going forward. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
that with Kentucky. There's a lot of Kentucky fans who are back on the train. They're riding with Mark Pope. They like this team, but they're just waiting for a noise they don't like and they're off at the next stop. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And that's how people got fair not with Cal. Got the and there was when it was rolling, there was those that were probably, well, we know what happened at UMass and Memphis within,
Mhm.
but we can't really say anything. Going to 4 Final Fours in 5 years, and but then the first little, you know, in knocking ping in the engine. Well, then here everybody came. So
There's a lot of cautious optimism, I would say.
yeah, yeah, and if you lose these two, you'll be 5-4 in the SEC, just limping above 500. Toughest portion of the schedule. You're in the meat of the schedule because it's like you said, it's right back to Kentucky beating good teams again, which was the whole thing with the non-conference. It's just going to be like Groundhog Day.
Mhm.
Basically. So Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Let's see. They both blew out Mississippi State, so there's a common opponent. Vanderbilt blew out. Well, they won at LSU more comfortably than we did. They won by 11. Um, let's see. This is just their last five. They both played LSU and Mississippi State. And Vanderbilt lost at Austin by 16. That was their
I made a
First
joke.
loss of the season, but yeah,
Yes, then they lost their first game of the season and had a little bit of a skid there,
yeah.
and then now they bounced back. They absolutely murdered whoever they just played. I saw it.
Mississippi State.
Yeah, they murdered them. It was rough. I
Hmm.
did watch the Florida game. That was one I got to see on TV. I believe that came right after the Tennessee Kentucky game. So I was obviously here with my windshield issues, which has been fixed now, thank God, with all the weather stuff now. But um, I did get to watch that one. It did look like they just, the same way any team that takes their first loss can kind of spiral a little bit. Um, they were doing that a little bit. They're back on track. It seems like I think they're a good team. I don't think they were a 20-0 caliber team the way that they were trending toward. I think
Uh-huh.
this is closer to what they are. They are a very good team, but they're not unbeatable. That honor, I don't care about Arizona. That honor is reserved for Nebraska ball and Nebraska ball only. They will never lose again. Um, but no, honestly, I got so distracted by Nebraska ball, I forgot where I was going with that, Vinny. No, I made a joke. I got it. Caught it. I made a joke to Jenna Lifshin. Obviously, she's a big Texas fan. After the Kentucky Texas game, I said Texas is a fascinating litmus test for the SEC. If you are a mediocre SEC team or a struggling SEC team, you will beat Texas. If you are a good, very good SEC team, a ranked SEC team, you're going to lose to Texas. I don't know why that is, but they beat Alabama, they beat
Yeah.
Vandy, they beat Georgia. They lost like they've lost to a bunch of other teams that they probably shouldn't have lost to with those wins. It's fascinating to see the way Texas works. One of the more confusing resume, not quite TCU levels of confusing. We're not losing to New Orleans and then beating Florida, but you know, a confusing resume nonetheless.
And Florida's all over the place too. I mean, they lose to Missouri. I mean, we talk about Missouri, but yet they knocked off Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Florida beats Georgia, destroys Tennessee,
They lost to Providence,
Oklahoma.
didn't they?
Uh, Florida goes to Vanderbilt just a couple of last week, and that was a great game, 98-94. But then they just stubbed their toe at home to Auburn this past weekend. So it's everybody's
How they beat Providence.
up
They
and
lost to
down.
TCU. Yeah, I mean it.
Um,
Florida's an interesting team because they start off their season at one point 5-4, and you're like, well, that's awful. But apart from the TCU loss, they lost to Arizona, Duke, and UConn.
mhm.
Again, most fans don't want to lose, but like if you're getting told you have to have three losses, pick them out. You probably say, well, those three make sense, right? Um, then they start SEC play with a loss of Missouri.
Mhm.
Missouri is such a weird team. And then
Yeah.
they rattle off five straight, and you're like, okay, Florida might be back. They're like really, really good. They're blowing out people. They murdered Tennessee.
Yes.
91-67 is
Mhm.
I think the last three times those teams have faced, it's always been a blowout. And
Yeah.
it's not been the same team each time either. Like they've each blown each other out. That's
Mhm.
a weird set of games. They get ranked
30
really highly,
piece
and then they just completely I almost said something more southern of me, but they crap the bed against Auburn
at
uh,
home.
at
And they
home, and
were
I
they had to come back. They had to rally to make it look disrespectable. They were getting
Stephen
blown
Pearl had
out.
to apologize because this player slammed down the dunk with like no seconds left, and then almost injured himself in the process. And apparently Stephen Pearl and Todd Golden are pretty good friends. There was some of the broadcast. He turns and just goes, "I'm sorry" to the coach for the handshake. Just a weird
Yeah.
ending of that game. Auburn is also up there in terms of just confusing resumes, but it's a weird year, Vinny. It's a weird year in college basketball.
And that's why, as you mentioned, the league goes from, just this behemoth last year with 14 teams getting in to not as many teams are going to get in because of all this weirdness.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a little more squirrely. You go from 14 to probably 9, like you said, because everybody's just got a little bit of Dr.
Well,
Jekyll, Mr. Hyde to them.
the biggest difference I would say this year versus last year is that the SEC was a bloodbath last year too, in the sense that, teams are beating each other willy-nilly. You never really knew what to expect and who was going to beat who. The difference was last year, just about apart from like LSU and South Carolina, pretty much every team in the league had a phenomenal non-conference schedule. I mean, even Oklahoma, one of the weaker ones, they won the battle for Atlantis. They got those wins. They started the season like 8-0, I think. Texas did enough in their non-con to be reputable, so that when you were losing all these games in conference play, you could have a losing SEC record and have no losses to bad teams because all the teams were rated so highly from their
Mm-hmm.
non-conference schedule. It made it to where the entire conference, apart from the bottom two, was tournament level, and then they just traded wins back and forth. The problem is they're trading those wins back and forth again this year. They're beating up on each other. They're having confusing results, but the non-conference was not there for a lot of these teams. A lot of these teams took bad losses in the non-con, or arguably more so the case, didn't get any big wins in the non-con to inflate their ranking. They
Yeah.
either lost questionable, or if they didn't lose questionable, they just didn't get enough wins to make the value be there. So
Yeah.
that now when you're doing the exact same thing you did last year, where you're all just beating up on each other, it's like, well, it goes from, two heavyweights duking it out in the ring to two kids throwing rocks at each other in the backyard. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same level because the non-conference wasn't there for a lot of these teams.
And you can put us right there on the poster when you make the
Absolutely, you
poster.
can.
It's
I think I made that point in the show before. The SEC is down this year, but let's keep it honest. Kentucky is contributing to that, not
yeah.
suffering from that. I mean, Kentucky is suffering from that, but it's also a contributing factor in that being the case.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, so that's a lot of words to say. We still really don't know what they are. These two games, depending on how they go, if they go 2 L's, then we're right back to where we were before the first of the year when we're
And
going. Can we ever beat
unfortunately,
anybody good?
if they go 0-2, their next two are against Oklahoma and Tennessee. Again, neither because they've already beat Tennessee and because Oklahoma's Oklahoma, neither of which are going to move the needle a ton. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have Florida, and people don't really know what Florida is this year. And then you go to
Mm-mm.
Georgia, and people aren't as sure about Georgia. Then you have Auburn. You host Georgia. My apologies. You go to Florida versus Georgia to Auburn. All three of those teams have confusing resumes. It gets to the point where it's not until you face Vanderbilt again on the 28th that you have another chance to beat what most people commonly recognize as a really good team. Again, those Georgia, Florida, Tennessee wins, those matter. Those are very good wins, and those would be good victories. Tough that they're all three in a row. That could be a really tough stretch for Kentucky, but
Mm-hmm.
all the same, apart from Vanderbilt, who they might beat tomorrow for all I know, they don't have another Alabama. They don't have, a lot of these teams that people are seeing as like the true best in this conference left on the schedule. And
Mm-hmm.
that is an unfortunate factor for them that it seems like in some ways it's just such a volatile year for the SEC that you lose these next two coming up. You don't get Arkansas again. You do get
Yeah.
Vanderbilt again, but a lot of these teams that people want to use is like, is Kentucky back? Only appear once.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the way the conference is shaken out, you can win a lot more games this year, and we could go into the tournament not really knowing what this team is, Vinny. It's entirely possible. Kentucky gets a 6 by its name in the tournament, and we go in saying they might lose the first round, they might go to the Sweet 16. I don't know.
Yeah. And just a flashback to South Carolina. If you follow some belief in Kentucky, I put it out there. They must have heard us talk about them because we talked about them at the bottom of the league, and they promptly smacked Oklahoma to put them in the bottom, and they could step up to being one rung above the bottom because 2-5 is better than 1-6. And they were
Yes.
looking down at LSU and Oklahoma now. They're up there at Mississippi State at 2-5, looking down at those 1-6 teams. So they say we're going to get out of the bottom because
Both those teams that are 1-6, Porter Moser probably has more security than Matt McMahon does. Matt McMahon seems like a dead man walking, but those are both coaches that if both schools are to make a change at the end of the year, I would not be caught off guard by that at all. And don't get me wrong, Porter Moser, fantastic coach at Loyola Chicago.
yeah,
We all
absolutely.
we all remember the Final Four at Loyola Chicago. At Oklahoma, following Lon Kruger, I mean, even if Lon Kruger wasn't exactly a world beater per se, a very long-standing Hall of Fame caliber coach, very reputable guy, got them in the tournament time. Has Porter Moser followed in those footsteps? Not really. It's felt like they're just there in a lot of ways. And I also think that the Big 12 is probably the best conference in basketball this year, so I don't know that the move to the SEC really changes a ton. But Oklahoma in football is one thing, but in basketball, both in the Big 12 and in the SEC, for as long as I've been reporting anyway, it feels like it's just one of those teams that's just kind of there. You know what I mean? Some years they're pretty solid, but most years they just feel like they're kind of there. The same way Missouri does in
Mm.
basketball a lot of the time. They feel like they're just hanging around.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you go back to Blake Griffin. They were good then. You
Lon
go back
Kruger.
to when I was a kid. Billy Tubbs had them rolling. They played Kansas for the national championship in '88,
Yeah, no,
and they
I'm
had
talking strictly about Porter Moser's tenure there.
oh
Lon
and
Kruger, they have history. Lon Kruger
yeah
was
yeah
obviously
yeah
Hall of Fame, but under Porter
yeah
Moser, they've always felt whether it's in the Big 12 or the SEC now, they just
okay
felt like they've been there.
just there, and look at them this year, and this is the testament to what we've been talking about. They had Missouri beat, and it took Mitchell heaving a three to beat them.
Hmm.
Um, they lose at home to Alabama by two. As bad as they are, as dead in the water as they are, they've been right there. And call it tough breaks, call it what you want, but you give them those two wins, they're 13-7, and they're what 3-4 in the league, and they're kind of clumped in the middle, and it's not as they're that's how thin the line is for everybody.
Even last season, though, I mean, there was so much made of Texas and Rodney Terry because they were the last, like one of the last teams making the field. But there was a little bit there before Texas became the focus of will the SEC get 14 teams in that Oklahoma was also right on that line, arguably. Before
Yeah,
you got into the SEC tournament and before they maybe got like a late win or two, there was talks that Oklahoma, the same way Texas, could miss out on the tournament. This wasn't a team that was like, when you look at last season, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, all these schools were like, they're going to the dance no matter what. Oklahoma was in the same category as Texas, and maybe I would even say Mississippi State was more secure than that. Oklahoma and Texas were both for a while the two that were like, will they?
yeah,
Won't they? I don't know. And then
yeah,
they both obviously got in. The SEC set a record with 14 teams that might never be broken until we have like
yeah,
a 30-team conference
yeah.
inevitably. But for a while, both those teams were right on the cut line.
And Oklahoma had us beat twice last year, as on the line as they were. It's like, again, I
And no
mean,
take away habit.
some it's I say it every year, media days and these projections. No matter the sport, somebody got to lose. That's just the
Mhm.
way it is. Somebody got to finish last and next to last, and then the middle, and then your top tier. Somebody got to take them L's because everybody can't be 14-4 in the league. You just can't, and it's going to be buzzer beaters. It's going to be 1 point losses, 2 point losses. Somebody's going to be like, "Oh my god!"
It's going to be
And
Kentucky at
right
Tennessee
now,
not leading until there's 30 seconds left on the clock, and suddenly they take the lead, and
yeah,
then Tennessee loses.
yeah,
How it's
it's
going to be.
just. You do your projections next year for media day. Somebody's gonna be 2-7. Somebody's gonna be 1-8. They might be projected to finish fourth, and a bunch of stuff happens, injuries, and just a string of just stuff kind of just builds. It avalanches, and next thing you know, oh, they finished 3-6. They were
Mhm.
picked second in the conference. Somebody got to take the L's. It's just a matter of who and when and how.
I don't think I think there are a lot of people expected them to take a step down, maybe, but I don't think many people expected Ole Miss to be as bad as they are this year.
No,
But somebody
mm-mm,
has to lose those games, and
no,
unfortunately, that's a flawed enough team that it usually ends up being them in the conference.
no. And Bear's a good coach and defense, and I mean they
L-
smacked Kentucky last year down in Oxford.
yeah, LSU was riding high until their point guard got injured, and then they started off SEC play and couldn't get a win. And now you go from a season that's trending upward to a season that's in the toilet, and your coach is probably leaving.
yeah.
So like
That
it changes quickly. It really does.
those are the margins, man, and everybody knows what they're signing up for, and mm, that's the pressure. That's the game, man. Sure is. Speaking of pressure and game, how nervous or how calm were you yesterday watching your New England Patriots on Championship Sunday?
Was on the edge of my seat the whole time, Vinny. Never seen that many missed kicks in my entire life. That was brutal. I didn't even realize. Like, I recognized that as the game was going on, but I didn't realize how the broadcast showed like kickoff versus now, like how bad the weather had gotten because it was so gradual for a lot of the game that like you didn't notice it get that it was crazy how the weather set in during that game. I mean, it was clear skies when the game started to seem like it was raining and then it was snowing and then it was the whole field was covered in snow by the end of the game. Um, by the end of the game, there was just no offense whatsoever. It felt like, but
Mm-hmm.
I've never cheered as loud as I've cheered. Maybe we'll see. But I was getting hyped over missed kicks. You know what I mean? I was like, when they missed that final field goal, like I was like pumped. I was like, let's go! Like we're going back to the Super Bowl. Like I knew that was it because I knew neither of those teams had scored again after that.
Uh,
Um, Not the best showing from the Patriots, but luckily for them, it was a worse showing for the Broncos on their home field. As for the Super Bowl, I'm petrified of the Seahawks.
Mm,
Because I'm a Patriots fan, I will say that the Patriots are going to beat them 100-0. But as a realist and someone who covers the sport, I've got a good friend who's a Bills fan. And when the Bills lost to the Broncos and Bo Nix got injured, she texted me and said, "Congrats on the Super Bowl." And I
mm,
said, "I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not going to put the Broncos down like that." And she said, "Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. Broncos, Patriots, NFC's winning it this year."
mm.
Unfortunately, that very well might be the case. I think the Seahawks and the Rams might be two of the best teams that were left, and the Rams go down to the Seahawks. The Seahawks could very well win it all this year, but the Patriots are there, and getting there is
They
half the
are.
battle. Getting
They
there is arguably
are.
most of the battle, quite frankly.
They are.
Winning one game, Drake May, Stephon Diggs, Stevenson. We need them all. We need the Patriots. We need the defense to step up, make those turnovers they got against the Texans. They had a good turnover against the Broncos. There just wasn't as much offense to account for it. But man, it's possible. Man, and I'm telling you, Vinny, I love you. I love our viewers. If the Patriots win a seventh Super Bowl in my lifetime, I'm gonna be insufferable. I'm gonna be utterly insufferable. I'm going to
Un-
be talking the craziest talk you've ever seen in your life.
Unbelievable. 7 in your lifetime. That doesn't even make sense to
I,
say.
I saw a post that was wild to me, and it was in the year of 2000. A Boston newspaper put out some kind of newspaper that showed like the Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, Pats. It was like welcome to like Loserville or something like that. Like they hadn't won a like none of their teams had won a title in like 16 years or something ridiculous like that. Since 2000, when they posted that newspaper about how all four teams were pitiful, they've won 13 titles across four sporting teams. The Bruins won one, the Red Sox broke their curse and won four, the Celtics won two, and the Patriots have won six. Could win a
Man,
seventh.
goodness gracious. So,
Wild.
first of all, Sean Payton bailed you out by going for it up 7-0 when the weather was good. Y'all stopped them on fourth and whatever it was at the 12-yard line. And if he kicks field goal, goes up 10-0, who knows? But then the weather gets bad, and then,
You wanna talk about Bill Vinny? Can I tell you a
zero,
secret? Can I tell you a secret live on air?
yeah.
Drake May did not get that first down on the tush push. He did not
Oh
get
my
that.
God.
He, you want a secret from a Patriots fan? The game is over. Everyone's gone home. It's decided. Drake May absolutely did not get a first down on that tush push, and they gave it to him. I was like, come on, call it. And then when they said first down, I was like, let's go. And they showed the sky cam. I was like,
And
and then
I'm
they
thinking,
reviewed it. They reviewed it, and like I was being arrogant. I was like, well, there's not enough to overturn it. It's going to stand. And it did. I was right. There wasn't enough to overturn it. But quite
yeah,
frankly, the wrong call was made because that was
yeah.
not. I thought he went straight. He went sideways, bumped into his own player, and then tried to spin. There's no shot he got across the first down line. But I'll take it. You know what I mean?
As I was thinking, they talking about the package, and I'm like, they put 2 extra D linemen in there for that?
Back
That's
there.
all they can do? I'm like, really? But yeah,
My question is, does Drake may know how the tush push works? Why did you go right? Why are we going any direction other than straight forward on a tush push? What are we doing?
but when they showed us sky view, you could read Sean Payton's lips. Look at the overhead, and like it was once it was just all the humanity there. I was like, they're not gonna overturn it, even though
Yeah,
it's
the
pretty
problem
clear he
was
didn't get it.
the problem was I think anyone with eyes, even the refs would probably say he probably didn't get that. But there's not clear and irrefutable evidence he didn't get that. And that is
Mm-hmm.
that's what's required of an overturn. And I hate it because the Patriots have suffered from it before. Other teams have suffered from it before. Everyone hates it. But the rules state there has to be clear and irrefutable evidence to overturn a call. And the fact of the matter is there wasn't.
And it
All of us
never
with
is
common
on
all of
those
us with common
plays.
sense all of us with common sense know he probably did not get that first down. But I cannot prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't get it.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the huddle. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know where the ball was when his knee was actually. No, that's the whole point of the tush push is that nobody knows where the ball was when his
Yeah.
knee went down. That's why people want the play banned. It's not because you can't stop it, but because it doesn't make sense. You can't see anything. How do I know if he got the first or not? I
Mm-hmm.
don't.
It's
That's
never
the
going to be
magic.
clear, indisputable.
No, no, no.
You got 22 people in a phone booth. It's
Yeah.
just
I don't know where anything is in that huddle. You know, I don't know whose arm is whose leg is it. Like, I don't know what's going on. So they gave him the first
Exactly.
down. I'll take it. The Pats went on to win the game 10-7. Luckily for sports fans, the Seahawks Rams was much better of a game.
Yeah.
But I'm the same guy who said that I love the 13-3 Super Bowl because I was a former defender. So I was nervous, but I did enjoy myself watching this game. I didn't hate this game the way other people did as a neutral fan, but it was special. Pats are going back to the Super Bowl. I think this is their 14th Super Bowl, maybe 13th or 14th
Oh,
Super Bowl they've been to.
oh,
Could win their 7th ring. We'll see. Could finally tie Tom Brady in rings. We'll see.
man,
Uh,
goodness gracious. Yeah, that's wow. So yeah, the Patriots fatigue is still there, and in my opinion, y'all should have been down several more years than you were. Because when did y'all get the last one with New England? What year was that?
2019 is when Tom Brady threw the interception to the Titans, which officially ended his Patriots career in the first round of the playoffs. The last Super Bowl was 2018 against the Rams. Tom
28.
Brady's
Okay,
last year in New
okay.
England was 2019 because it was like the very last play of the game. I think one of the last plays he threw a pick six from his own red zone to the Titans, and the Titans with Mike Vrabel knocked the Patriots out, and Brady left shortly after that.
It
Um,
feels like it's hasn't. I mean, I'm surprised. It feels like it was just like 2 years ago. So 2019. It's been longer than I thought. But
yeah,
the fatigue is still there. The
they had
fatigue is
the
still there, Cole.
pandemic happen. They had the Cam Newton years then they had the Mac
Oh
Jones.
yeah,
If you think about it, they had the
yeah.
Cam Newton years, then they had the Mac Jones years with the Jared Stidham, the Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky. Then you get Drake May. Drake May's first year, I believe, was last season. This season. So like when I spell it out for you that way, you're like, okay, I guess it could have been 6 years because you had to go through Cam Newton, Mac Jones, realizing that your first round pick wasn't very good. Then Belichick leaves. It all makes sense when you lay it out that way. But I do understand how from the neutral fan it doesn't feel like that long. I saw a joke on Twitter. It was Randy Orton looking at it said, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad the Chiefs aren't making the Super Bowl this year." And it's the Undertaker emerging from a flaming coffin, and it's got the Patriots logo on it. You're just like, no way, again. But
Yeah, so it's been longer than I thought, but the fatigue's still there. So I'm I'm an NFC guy anyway. And look, Seattle's got to do this for Marshawn Lynch for the 1 yard he didn't get because Pete Carroll got
they
too
won. They
cute.
won a Super Bowl in that window, though. I'm
They
not like
could
I
have
get.
went back to back. They went back to back. Pete Carroll cost them. Marshawn Lynch would have got that yard. You saw Tom Brady on the sideline, Cole.
Russell Wilson did not
You
have to make that
saw,
throw.
you
Russell Wilson
saw
did
how
not have to make that throw.
you saw how distraught Tom Brady was because he knew the game was over,
Yeah, it
and
should have
then he's
been.
and
But Malcolm
got
Butler on
beast
the goal
mode
line.
over there. Beast mode over there not being used. So Pete Carroll, dude, you chew your gum and overthink it. But so
Malcolm Butler on the goal. Also, speaking of Pete Carroll, fired from the Raiders. Obviously, they're going to get the number 1 overall pick. They're going to get Mendoza. We're going to conveniently ignore Vinny. Another secret live on air. We're going to ignore that one of their wins might have been the New England Patriots. One of their wins might have been the New England Patriots.
yeah.
I saw a stat. I heard a
Uh,
stat on the broadcast that actually, like, I realized it in real time, but like I lived it. So like I obviously like in my head I knew it, but I didn't really. Those stats, like I lived through it, so that makes sense. But like until I hear it said that way, like that's crazy. The Broncos and the Patriots both started 1-2 and then proceeded to lose one game for the rest of the season. That is wild. I the
wow.
Patriots went into the playoffs. Went into the playoffs 14-3, I believe. They started 1-2 and then they lost one game the rest of the season, and that was when they blew it against the Bills. I forget who the Broncos lost to, but both teams started 1-2 and then went from there. They proceeded to go, do my math, 13-1 for the rest of the season. Wild stuff.
So undefeated on the road, even whatever strength of schedule is, whatever to go undefeated on the road is pretty impressive. Gotta give y'all that, and then to go and get Denver yesterday on the road, that was that is the only team in the league to do it. So you got to tip your cap to.
I cannot believe they lost to the Raiders, man. I watched that game. That was like the season opener. I watched
Yeah,
that game and I was like, what in the world, man? What am I watching?
Yeah, that's just you talk about stuff make sense. That that is one that will make you scratch your head for sure. So
I left that game thinking the Raiders are going to be good, and now they've got the number one overall pick, and they're going to get Mendoza, and Carroll's gone after one season.
yeah,
What?
I just don't know if what I mean. What did we think of Mendoza as a pro prospect? What do we? Is he built for number one? Is he built for the? I mean, the Raiders. I
I mean,
think.
the uncomfortable conversation is it has a lot less to do with Mendoza and a lot more to do with the Raiders than anything. I mean,
Yeah, that's the question.
great quarterbacks can be wasted on bad teams, and mediocre quarterbacks can become great. I mean, let's not pretend that Tom Brady was this elite prospect coming out of college. We all know he wasn't. He was a 6th round pick. We all know that Josh Allen was a guy out of Wyoming who needed a ton of work. I mean, when you saw first season NFL Josh Allen, that man was unplayable, unplayable, and now he's an MVP. So it has a lot less to do with Mendoza and way more to do with the Raiders. We'll see if they develop him properly. They do have Tom Brady on their staff. They might. Um, we'll see. We'll see. I think Mendoza has I think he has the tools, more importantly, the mindset to be a really great quarterback, but it's going to depend on the situation they put him in, whether his O line is good, whether his team is good, whether the scheme is good, whether he's developed properly. There's a lot that goes into it.
And Mendoza is Carl Anthony Towns nice, almost to the. Is he really that? Is he that nice? Is he really?
The LinkedIn
All
warrior.
his
Absolute,
interviews.
absolute LinkedIn
You know,
warrior.
so for him to be going to Vegas and the Raiders and Mark Davis and that organization, I just don't bless his heart. I just don't know. I hope it works out for him.
He
I mean,
somehow made a LinkedIn post in corporate speak about winning the national title. Not kidding. It's like it's a whole thing about him and his LinkedIn profile. He's all about the LinkedIn posts.
hey, I mean, just got to keep it ready. If your NFL career doesn't work out, you got to put yourself ready to work and get yourself out there, man, in the
I mean, I
workforce.
guess. I guess. You think he's getting those same like sponsored content like University of West Georgia's like, we'd love for you to be in our honors program. I hope so. I hope he's getting the same sponsored content DMs on LinkedIn than I am.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. So, yeah, but yeah, they're hitting him up. You know they are. You know they
They
are.
have to. Imagine he enrolled at West Georgia for a season. Like I got the message on LinkedIn. I had to.
Why is his brother leaving? Can he just step in and start at IU? What? That's weird. He goes to Georgia Tech. I don't. He
I
just
don't
won a
know.
title. Your brother leaves. You're backing your brother up. If you wanted to play, you wouldn't have stayed and backed your brother up. You back your brother up. Your brother leaves. You win a national championship. Do you not want to try to
As a
step into your
sibling,
brother's shoes? What is with that?
as a sibling, I would say my brother winning the Heisman and leading Indiana to a 16-0 season. If they lose even a single game, which might not even be his fault, he's going to get compared to his brother every game. I would leave too. I would hate that.
Yeah.
I would hate that. Like I could win the Heisman and lead Indiana to another national title and still be called worse than my brother. So like,
Mm,
I would go somewhere else. I don't want to live in his shadow. But
wow.
it's interesting. Do you see
Yeah.
the thing like his mom made them share rooms even though they didn't have to because she wanted them to be more competitive?
Mm,
Interesting. Interesting.
mm.
Taking
Yeah.
notes.
And the
Taking notes.
more the more they're the spotlight, the more stuff like that will continue to just trickle out. That's the way it.
Vinny, I'm
Yeah.
taking notes and we're gonna have generational wealth in our future. I'm taking notes. I don't know. Hate it for my girlfriend. I'm gonna have to find a pure athlete because she's 5 foot tall and I'm not quite 6 foot. So I don't know where they're gonna get the athletic genes from, but I'm taking notes. I might adopt a kid. We can adopt a kid and then put them on Operation Mendoza. You know what I mean? I guess we have to adopt two technically, but we'll adopt two kids and then go on Operation Mendoza.
There you go. There you go. Well, on that note, we'll close the show out. Uh, everybody subscribe, rate, review, follow us at Believe in Kentucky. Tune in and stay warm as you watch the Cats at Vandy, and we'll see what happens in this first tougher competition of the week. Then we'll see what happens Saturday evening in Fayetteville. Be careful, be safe. Don't let none of them Baton Rouge rocks come for you again. Cole Park on the way to
If
Nashville.
my windshield has any more damage, we're going without a windshield going forward. We're giving up. The next rock is gonna take me out, I guess. Like I don't know.
Your eyes would be so chapped and bloodied, and the wind
I'll
just
wear goggles. I'll wear
whipping
goggles.
through
My
your.
lips are gonna be finished, but I'll wear goggles. Don't worry.
Shout out to Safe Light and Allstate for hooking up Cole Park, and we'll hop on off here. Look, go Cats! Everybody, stay safe. We'll be back next week. If we need to go live sometimes, depending on breaking news, we'll do that as well. Um, get some guests in here from time to time and keep doing our thing on Believe in Kentucky. Appreciate the subscriptions and the follows and the 5-star reviews and all that stuff. It helps the show grow, and we're thankful for it. Appreciate Cole Park. Check him out on the Cat's Paws 247 Sports. Check us out on the Believe Network. We're always there. Go Cats. We'll see y'all next time.